get kind of a long chapter here. We get to cover 3 more plagues. And we'll start in verse 1. Then Yahweh said to Moses, "Go to Pharaoh and say to him, Thus says Yahweh, Let my people go, that they may serve me. But if you refuse to let them go, behold, I will smite your whole country with frogs. The Nile will swarm with frogs, which will come up and go into your house, and into your bedroom, and on your bed, and into the houses of your servants, and on your people, and into your ovens, and into your kneading bowls. So the frogs will come up on you, and your people, and all your servants." Then Yahweh said to Moses, "Say to Aaron, Stretch out your hand with your staff over the rivers, over the streams, and over the pools, and make frogs come up out of the land." So Aaron stretched out his hand over the waters of Egypt, and the frogs came up and covered the land of Egypt. The magicians did the same with their secret arts, making frogs come up on the land of Egypt. Then Pharaoh called to Moses and Aaron and said, "Entreat Yahweh that he remove the frogs from me and from my people, and I will let the people go, that they may sacrifice to Yahweh." Moses said to Pharaoh, "The honor is yours to tell me when I shall entreat for you and your servants and your people, that the frogs be destroyed from you and your houses, that they may be left only in the Nile." Then he said, "Tomorrow." So he said, "May it be according to your word, that you may know that there is no one like Yahweh our God. The frogs will depart from you and your houses and your servants and your people. They will be left only in the Nile." When Moses and Aaron went out from Pharaoh, and Moses cried to Yahweh concerning the frogs which he had inflicted upon Pharaoh, then Yahweh did according to the word of Moses, and the frogs died out of the houses, the courts, and the fields. So they piled them in heaps, and the land became foul. But when Pharaoh saw that there was relief, he hardened his heart and did not listen to them as Yahweh had said. Okay. Yeah, we can all imagine frogs getting everywhere. First of all, frogs are basically an unclean animal. You don't want them in your food. You don't want them in your bed. And I remember hearing one rabbinic commentary talking about when it says the frog came upon the people, the frogs were actually getting into the people. While they were sleeping, they would crawl into orifices in the body, and nobody wants frogs in their body. But think about this, it's in your kneading troughs. You've got frogs in your food. Now, frogs are highly mobile. I don't know if you've thought about this, but the frog can be way over there, and you're working on your food, and he can whoop right into your food. That's kind of a yucky thought in my mind. And if you had any good sense, you'd wind up throwing that food away and starting over. Okay? Although I dare say they haven't really inculcated the idea of eating frog legs at this time, or they'd be very happy. You know? But frogs were, again, we went through in past years how each of the plagues attacks one of the gods of Egypt. Mm-hmm. Well, evidently the Egyptians like to worship frogs for some reason. I don't know why. I mean, they worship beetles and just about everything else. You know, why not frogs?
Why not frogs too?
You know. I found it kind of interesting that after they do away with the frogs, what do they get swarms of? They get swarms of lice and flies. Okay, what do frogs usually eat?
Flies.
Insects, okay? If you do away with the frogs, what happens after that? You get massive insects. Okay, so the frogs that are a blessing in one way become a curse and then become a double curse. Jim?
And when the frogs are dead and piled up all over the land so it stinks, what comes upon the land in massive amounts?
Yeah, dead frogs bring flies and other things.
And locusts, maggots are flies. Right?
Yeah.
Maggots are the larvae of the fly.
Yeah, I would think that they would want to burn all this. But the magicians come along and they add to the misery because they make more frogs. As Dustin brought up last week, they can make more problems, but they can't get rid of the problem. Okay, Yahweh is not letting them do away with the frogs. In fact, we don't even know if they tried. They just tried to duplicate a miracle. And what is Satan the master of?
Copy.
Copying counterfeits, okay? So the magicians are in kind of a bad way. And if you think about this, Satan has the power, he has power, but he can only make your situation worse by giving you what you want. Okay? Sometimes what we want isn't what's good for us. In fact, that's often the case. Okay? So Satan's power is limited to doing things for you that you want but are not good for you. He only has the power to make things worse, not better. Satan's answer never is the right answer. Okay, and that's why you wait upon Yahweh to give you the right answer, because, like I said, we so often want what's bad for us. In Psalms it says, he gave the people their request, but sent meanness to their souls. In other words, they demanded to have what they wanted, when they wanted it, okay? And he said, okay, fine, you're hardening your heart towards my answer. I'll give you what you asked for, and it will be bad for you, okay? So when you ask God for something, and he doesn't answer the way you want, be patient and accept his answer. Don't just keep demanding what you want, because what you want can very likely be bad for you, okay? Trust God, okay? That's the real crux of the whole matter. It's actually trusting God to know what he's doing. Okay? It says that all things work together for good to those who love God and are called according to his purpose. Wait for him to work it together for good. Don't just demand what you want, what you see as the answer. All right, going on from there. And Moses makes the point to Pharaoh. He says, you name when the frogs go away, and I will pray for it so that you'll know that Yahweh is true God. And so he names tomorrow for getting rid of the frogs, and God answers the next day. And Pharaoh should learn from this that it's Yahweh who's in control. Okay, very clear, demonstrable act. Okay, and then at the end of it all, when Pharaoh saw that there was relief, he hardened his heart and did not listen to them as Yahweh had said. Well, we talked about this word hardening before. And yesterday, it was, as I was going through this, I was kind of gotten insight into it. He encouraged himself. Okay? When I say he's hardening his heart, what he's doing is he's encouraging himself. Okay? What does encourage mean? It means to put courage into yourself. Okay? Or to have courage put into you by your circumstances. Okay, so when you think about him hardening his heart, think about it, he's encouraging himself, and the question is, what's he basing his encouragement on? Evidently something is giving Pharaoh hope. Okay, he's hoping in something, either that the gods are going to come through for him, or he's hoping in some kind of promise, but he's encouraging himself based upon a false hope. Okay. Now we come to the third plague, the plague of flies. Then Yahweh said to Moses, say to Aaron, stretch out your staff and strike the dust of the earth, that it may become gnats through all the land of Egypt. Okay, and my footnote says gnats or lice. I can imagine lice would be a lot worse than gnats. Gnats are irritating, but they're not really that big a deal. Okay, we were camping one year when I was in high school, and we had a gnat infestation like I couldn't believe. And a friend of ours was coming up from Miami, and he was bringing halukis, which is the Hungarian version of cabbage rolls with tomato sauce on it. And he was several hours late getting there with the food. Okay, we were all starving, waiting for this. Any minute he's going to get here, you know. And so there's a half dozen or more of us just waiting and waiting and waiting. And when he finally pulls in, it's like, get the food out of the car and on the table. Okay, now. And as soon as we uncovered the halukis, the gnats just whoosh, covered the tomato sauce, turned black on top.
Ew.
We didn't care. We ate the Holopius gnats and all. We were that hungry,
Wow.
okay? And it didn't hurt any of us, okay?
Oh,
But the
gee.
thing is, a gnat infestation
That's sad.
is not something terrible. Irritating, disgusting, not terrible. On the other hand, a lice infestation would be terrible because they get in your hair
Ew,
and they
that's-
start eating your skin or whatever lice do and making you itch all over. That's much worse than having a gnat infestation. So I'm kind of thinking this was lice, okay, rather than gnats, because God is irritating the people. And Pharaoh can't escape from the gnats any more than people can. Because remember, even if he had screens, I remember being at my uncle's place in Almirada, which is down by Key West, and I was sleeping in a hammock on the porch. The gnats came right through the screens,
Ew.
and they would bite and sting, and it wasn't anything serious, but it was constant, just dozens of bites and itching, and it was really miserable. Okay, so I think when you talk about gnats or lice, well, sand fleas is what they were, which is more like lice, but it was something that the people didn't like.
Have you ever breathed in gnats?
Oh, yeah.
It's not nice.
Ooh.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, because I choked and upchucked because of the gnats going
Yeah,
down my throat.
gnats or lice in your throat or nose is
Yeah.
not a fun thing. Okay, anyway, going on with verse 17. They did so, and Aaron stretched out his hand with his staff and struck the dust of the earth. And there were gnats on man and beast. All the dust of the earth became gnats through all the land of Egypt. The magicians tried with their secret arts to bring forth gnats, but they could not. So there were gnats on man and beast. So this time they were even able to make the situation worse. Verse 19. And then the magician said to Pharaoh, "This is the finger of God." But Pharaoh's heart was hardened, and he did not listen to them, as Yahweh had said. Okay, so finally the magicians are giving him good advice. So good advice from bad advisors is still good advice, but Pharaoh's not listening. And again, he has a heart set on one thing, and that's defying God. And when your heart is simply set on defying God, no amount of evidence or advice to the contrary is going to change anything. It's going to be up to God to shake you up and get you to listen. Okay? And he's still got 7 more plagues that it's going to take to really shake Pharaoh up. Yeah. Verse 20. Now Yahweh said to Moses, "Rise early in the morning and present yourself before Pharaoh as he comes out to the water, and say to him, Thus says Yahweh, let my people go that they may serve me. For if you do not let my people go, behold, I will send swarms of flies on you, and on your servants, and on your people, and into your houses. And the houses of the Egyptians will be full of swarms of flies, and also the ground on which they dwell. But on that day I will set apart the land of Goshen, where my people are living, so that no swarms of flies will be there, in order that you may know that I, Yahweh, am in the midst of the land. I will put a division between my people and your people. Tomorrow this sign will occur." Then Yahweh said to Moses, then Yahweh did so. And there came great swarms of flies into the house of Pharaoh and the houses of his servants, and the land was laid waste because of the swarms of flies in the land of Egypt. Pharaoh called for Moses and Aaron and said, "Go sacrifice to your God within the land." But Moses said, "It is not right to do so, for we will sacrifice to Yahweh our God what is an abomination to the Egyptians. If we sacrifice what is an abomination to the Egyptians before their eyes, will they not stone us? We must go a 3-day journey into the wilderness and sacrifice to Yahweh our God as he commands us." Pharaoh said, "I will let you go, that you may sacrifice to Yahweh your God in the wilderness, only you shall not go very far away. Make supplication for me." Then Moses said, "Behold, I am going out from you, and I shall make supplication to Yahweh that the swarms of flies may depart from Pharaoh, and from his servants, and from his people tomorrow. Only do not let Pharaoh deal deceitfully again in not letting the people go to sacrifice to Yahweh. So Moses went out from Pharaoh and made supplication to Yahweh. Yahweh did as Moses asked, and removed the swarms of flies from Pharaoh, and from his servants, and from his people. Not one remained. But Pharaoh hardened his heart this time also, and he did not let the people go. I wanted to read a blurb from another Sarah Young. It says, "Take hold of the hope that I offer to you, and be greatly encouraged. The hope of heaven is your birthright as a Christian. Many, many blessings flow out of that glorious promise into your present life in this world. Notice, however, that take hold is an active verb, requiring effort on your part. As the Apostle Paul taught, you need to press on toward the goal and live up to what you have already attained. This requires you to exert yourself, grasping onto the heavenly hope from which so many blessings flow. One of the blessings is encouragement, but encouraged is a passive form of the verb. You receive encouragement as a free gift from me when you make the effort to take hold onto your hope, focusing on what I've already done, died for your sins, what I am doing, living in you, and what I will do, take you home to heaven. I love to give good gifts in generous proportions, so cling to the hope, beloved, and you will be greatly encouraged." And this is the essence of what is called the faith rest life. You have to take hold of the promise and hold on to that, and then let God encourage you because you've grabbed onto the promise and you're putting your hope in that. Okay. You can't take hope in the circumstances around you, because usually the circumstances are bad and oftentimes will get worse. But you can be encouraged through it all by taking hold on the hope, taking hold on the promise that God is going to work it all out. Okay. I used to have a bumper sticker on my Honda. It said, "I know the future. God wins." And that's what we're counting on. We're counting on the promise that God is going to win. Okay. We live, I can't use that idiom here. We live in a storm, a bad storm. Okay. And we have to weather through it by taking hold of the promise of the future. We don't take hope that the storm is going to go away. We take hold on the promise that we're going to get through the storm. Okay. And this time, again, notice that Yahweh is telling Pharaoh, "I am in the midst of your land." What is it we all hope for? What do we celebrate at Sukkot? God dwelling in our midst. What did the Israelites have for 40 years in the desert? God dwelling in their midst. What did they have with the temple? God dwelling in their midst. What was the promise of the coming of the Messiah? Was that he would be in our midst. And with the advent of the indwelling Holy Spirit, we have God within us. Okay, God is literally within us. Okay, which is why we're called temples. Okay, each generation gets a better hope. Okay, with a better covenant. Okay, and we're still looking forward to God coming to live in our midst when the Messiah returns. Okay, look forward to that. Don't look at the circumstances that you're having to deal with. Look forward to the hope of the second coming, the hope of the resurrection. Focus on that and not what you're losing in this world. The things of this world are all temporary. It says the things that are seen are temporal. The things that are unseen are eternal. Okay, right now the kingdom of God is unseen. And what did Yeshua say to Nicodemus in John chapter 3? You can't see the kingdom of God unless you've been born from above. You can only see it through the eyes of faith. You can't see it with your physical eyes. So don't worry about the things you can see. Hope in the things you can't see. I always loved the story of Elijah, and I think it was Elijah and Elisha. They're in a town that's temporarily given them refuge, but the enemy has sent troops and they've surrounded the town with armies. And Elijah's servant is worried and he's scared because he sees these armies. And Elijah says, "There's more with us than with them." And his servant goes like, "What?" And so he prays to God, he says, open his eyes, and all of a sudden he can see the angelic host around the city that's much larger than the army surrounding them. We just aren't tuned in to see what is invisible to us now. If we could, we would be much more greatly encouraged, because God is winning the war, even though in the physical realm it looks like he's losing. Okay? But he's not really. And eventually, Yeshua will bring judgment on the world. And those who are dedicated to Satan will be crushed. And that's the promise. We have to take hold of that. Yeshua will win. And one of the things I wanted to point out, up till now, everything in the plagues that God has done has been irritating, but has not cost the people a lot. With the deceitfulness of Pharaoh saying, I will let you go, okay, he's dickering with God, and God's saying, nope, you're either going to obey it fully, 3 days journey out in the desert, and Pharaoh's being deceitful, saying, I'll let you go. Oh, well, no, I'll let you go part way, but not all the way. Okay. The next plague is going to be the Egyptian cattle die. Okay. When you think about flies and lice and the river turning to blood, you're talking about things that are irritating, but not really costly. Okay.
Well, you said it affects their livelihood because they can't eat. It destroys their food and the blood, killing all the fish.
Yeah, but they had other sources of food. How much, as a fisherman, how much energy do you put into raising the fish?
Zero.
Zero. The fish grow in the river. You go to the river, you just grab the fish. So you have very little financial investment when it comes to fishing. Okay, when it comes to raising cattle for beef, you have a big financial investment. First of all, you have to get the calf as a baby. Then you have to feed it, care for it, pay the vet to take care of it when it gets sick. You have to build fences to keep it in. You have to guard it from being rustled. There's a big investment in beef. Well, the next plague is going to cost them a lot of money. Okay? And I think it's because Pharaoh began playing games with God. Okay, it's one thing to tell God, no, I'm not going to cooperate. It's another thing to say, yes, I will, and then back out. Okay, when you deal with God, deal honestly. Don't be deceitful. Don't say you're going to do what you're not going to do and play games. And Moses makes that point. Only do not let Pharaoh deal deceitfully again. Okay. It's bad to be deceitful with God. And most of the deceit that we have between God and us is deceiving ourselves. Not being honest with ourselves about what we're doing that we know God doesn't want us to do, and we try and justify our sinful habits and say, well, what I'm doing isn't so bad, God shouldn't bother me about that. And yet, we're not fooling God. We're deceiving ourselves, not Him. God knows everything. He sees everything clearly, and He sees every thought, word, and deed that we're involved in. So, when you come to God, come honestly and openly, admit what you're doing wrong, and try and do things correctly. Don't try and deceive God. God is not a fool. All right, next week we'll pick up with chapter 9 and the onslaught of the cattle. We'll deal with the issues of how can the cattle be killed twice.
I feel like I'm in school.
Good.
You are.
26. What is the abomination to the Egyptians?
Okay.
What are they talking about?
Think of it from the standpoint of India. The Indians worship cows. Okay, one of the main sacrifices in temple worship is sacrificing cows. Okay, the Egyptians worshipped a number of things, one of which would have been cows. Okay, if you start killing cows in sacrifice to Yahweh, the Egyptians would see that as an abomination. Okay, Dustin.
You mentioned unsure why they worshipped frogs. The goddess Heket had the frog head, and she was a fertility goddess because of the way that they multiplied. They actually had deified the frog, kind of like India has deified the cow, to the point that you couldn't do anything about the frogs. So you weren't allowed to kill the frogs, so not only were they multiplying all over the land, you couldn't actually do anything about them. And then God gets rid of them by killing the symbol of their fertility goddess.
Okay, so the frog is a fertility symbol,
Message in that.
okay, and you
Oh,
couldn't
yeah.
kill them.
And
But
letting it rot, yeah.
it reminds me of a book, I forget the author offhand, but he's someone associated with Lot Bree, where he talked about the east, no exit, and the whole idea that everything is God. So in India, you can't kill the rat that is in your garden eating your vegetables. So what people did was they would trap the rat and put it in their neighbor's garden. Okay, so it would eat their vegetables, not yours. Okay, so the whole philosophy of pantheism just isn't a practical working religion.